All right. Ready to dive into something I think we can all relate to. Those like inner struggles, the ones that we all kind of face. They feel like they're holding us back from being our best selves. So today we're going to explore these inner demons, I guess you could say, through a really unique lens. We've got excerpts from this text that uses spiritual wisdom, kind of explains these common struggles that we have, and it personifies them as 8 asuras.
Yeah, it's pretty cool how this text uses those asuras, like almost like mythical villains in a way,
Yeah,
to represent these tendencies that we all have, these negative tendencies.
exactly. And while the Ashura concept comes from like a spiritual tradition, they feel so relevant to everyday life.
Totally.
It's like they tapped into just like the human experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first one we're going to tackle is this Udayudh, who embodies that kind of like fiery energy of aggression. I think we all know this one.
Right.
Whether it's road rage or, getting into a heated argument, like we've all been there.
Yeah. It's those moments when we just lose our cool.
Yeah, so Udayudh definitely sounds familiar.
Oh, yeah.
But it's interesting how the text frames this aggression as like an actual demon that we need to conquer. What's the wisdom in that?
Well, it's not necessarily about suppressing all anger,
Right.
because anger can be healthy in a lot of ways, like if it motivates us to address injustice or if it's protecting ourselves.
Yeah.
But the text is talking about how unchecked aggression, like those really explosive outbursts, can disrupt both our inner peace
Right.
and our relationships. Like it becomes this destructive force.
So it's about like channeling that fiery energy in a more productive way.
Exactly.
Instead of letting Udayudh like take the wheel and drive us off a cliff.
Totally. It's about finding those healthier ways to express our frustration or assert our boundaries.
Right.
And, the text connects this to something kind of surprising, which is stress management.
Okay.
Like learning techniques to calm our minds and bodies can actually help us tame Udayudh's fiery outbursts.
That makes sense. It's like if we can kind of manage our stress level,
Right.
we're less likely to just like lose it over small things.
Exactly. And that's where things like mindfulness or, deep breathing, even physical activity can really help.
Oh, yeah.
It's about having those tools
Yeah.
so we can de-escalate the situation before Udayudh takes over.
Okay. So we've tackled the hothead. What about the demon that makes us want to like hide in the shadows?
You're talking about Kambu,
Okay.
the embodiment of shame.
Oh, shame. Yeah, that feeling that just makes us want to disappear, avoid taking risks, or just like stay small. Like it can be crippling.
Absolutely. The text emphasizes how shame contracts our minds and hearts and kind of prevents us from expressing ourselves authentically.
Yeah, it's like having this inner critic constantly whispering in your ear, like, you're not good enough, or don't even bother.
Right, and that's where self-compassion comes in as the antidote to that.
Okay.
Instead of beating ourselves up for our perceived flaws, we can practice treating ourselves with kindness and understanding.
I love that. Self-compassion, it's like giving ourselves a break,
Right?
recognizing that everyone makes mistakes. But what if someone's shame is rooted in something they genuinely regret? Like, can self-compassion really help then?
That's a good question. It's an important question.
Yeah.
And it gets to the heart of what self-compassion really means. It's not about condoning harmful actions
Right.
or ignoring the consequences of our choices, but it's about recognizing that even when we mess up, we're still worthy of love and forgiveness, especially from ourselves.
So it's about like separating our actions from like our inherent worth.
Exactly.
We can acknowledge a mistake without letting it define us.
Right. And that shift in perspective is so powerful
Yeah.
because it allows us to learn from our experiences without getting trapped in that cycle of shame
Right.
and self-judgment. So it allows us to move forward.
Okay, so we've dealt with like fiery aggression and crippling shame. What other challenges are lurking within?
Get ready to face a truly formidable foe, Koti Virya,
Okay.
the demon of fear.
Ah, fear. I think we've all encountered Koti Virya at some point, right? That feeling of overwhelming dread that can just like stop us in our tracks.
Absolutely. The text uses this powerful image to describe the intensity of this fear. It describes it as hundreds of millions of heroic warriors.
Wow.
It's like you're facing an entire army.
That's an intense visual.
Right.
And I think it really captures that feeling of being completely overwhelmed by fear.
It does. It emphasizes how fear, when left unchecked, can prevent us from experiencing both the joys of this world
Right.
and the depths of spiritual growth.
Wow.
It can keep us stuck in a state of paralysis.
So if we're facing this massive army of fear, how do we even begin to fight back? Do we need to become like fearless warriors ourselves?
Well, I don't know if becoming completely fearless is really the goal here.
Okay.
It's more about building our resilience,
Right.
our ability to face our fears and take action in spite of them.
So instead of running away from the army, we're learning to stand our ground, maybe even advance towards it.
Exactly. And the text suggests an approach, breaking down our fears into smaller, manageable steps. It's about tackling them one battle at a time.
Okay, so we're not looking at the entire army at once. We're focusing on one soldier at a time. So what would that look like in a real-life situation? Say someone has a fear of public speaking.
Well, instead of jumping right into giving a big presentation, they might start by practicing in front of a mirror,
Right.
then maybe with a close friend, and then maybe a small group.
Okay.
Each step builds confidence.
So it's about proving to ourselves that we can actually handle those challenges.
Yeah.
Even if it's one small step at a time.
Exactly. And as we face those fears and experience success, even in small doses, we start to realize that Koti Virya isn't as invincible as we thought.
Right. It's not this like giant, unbeatable monster.
Exactly.
So we faced aggression, we faced shame and fear head on. What other inner demons are we up against?
Next up is a master manipulator. Dhaumra, the demon of doubt. Doubt, that nagging feeling that whispers like, are you sure? Or what if you're wrong? It can sabotage our decisions, right? And make us just second-guess ourselves constantly. Definitely. The text points out how doubt can even describe us from our spiritual path,
Right.
kind of leading us astray.
It's like trying to navigate a maze blindfolded.
Totally.
How do we find our way through that fog of doubt and make confident decisions?
Well, the first thing is to recognize that not all doubts are bad.
Okay.
Some doubts can actually be really helpful. They can prompt us to think critically, make informed choices.
Right.
But the text suggests that we need to cultivate discernment,
Okay.
the ability to kind of tell the difference between doubts that serve us and those that hold us back.
So it's like we need to become doubt detective.
Yeah, I like that.
Figuring out which clues are leading us toward the truth and which ones are leading us astray.
Right. And one way to develop that discernment is to cultivate self-trust. Learning to listen to our intuition, our inner voice, and balancing that with the information and evidence that we gather from the outside world.
So it's not about ignoring our doubts altogether.
No.
But learning to filter them, weigh them against our own inner knowing and the information we have.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot between healthy skepticism and unwavering self-belief.
Okay.
Because when we trust ourselves, we're less likely to be swayed by every doubt that crosses our path.
So we can move forward with more confidence.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've learned to kind of manage our anger, embrace self-compassion, face our fears, and navigate through that doubt. What's next? What's the next challenge on our journey to conquer these inner demons?
Next, we're going to delve into a demon that might seem a little less obvious,
Okay.
but it can be just as detrimental. This is Kalaka, who represents ignorance.
Ignorance. I'm guessing this isn't just about lacking information or not knowing the answer to a trivial question.
No, you're right. The text describes Kalaka as a force that breeds division and conflict.
Okay.
And it's not simply about a lack of knowledge, but it's about the judgments and assumptions that we make when we encounter something that's unfamiliar.
So it's more about that knee-jerk reaction to just label something as wrong or bad.
Yeah.
Just because we don't understand it.
Exactly. Ignorance fuels prejudice and misunderstanding.
Right.
And it creates these us versus them mentalities that can lead to all sorts of conflict and division.
So if ignorance is the demon, then curiosity and open-mindedness are the antidotes.
Absolutely. But the text goes a little deeper than that. It's not enough to just say, be more open-minded. It actually offers techniques to cultivate those qualities within ourselves.
Okay, now that's interesting. It's one thing to say don't judge a book by its cover.
Right.
But it's another thing to actually train ourselves to do that, especially when we're confronted with something that challenges our beliefs.
Totally. And one technique that the text highlights is cultivating what's called beginner's mind. It's about approaching situations with a sense of curiosity and openness, almost as if we're seeing them for the first time.
So almost like we're children again, full of wonder and a desire to learn instead of just assuming that we already know everything.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that shift in attitude could be so powerful. It allows us to see beyond our preconceived notions and engage with the world in a more authentic and compassionate way. It's like opening ourselves up to a whole new dimension of understanding.
Okay, I'm really intrigued by this idea of beginner's mind.
Yeah.
It feels like such a simple concept, but it could have such a profound impact on how we interact with each other and with the world around us.
Absolutely. It's about cultivating that spirit of inquiry, wanting to learn and understand rather than judge and dismiss.
Yeah.
And that kind of mindset can be really transformative, both personally and collectively.
So we've tackled aggression, shame, fear, doubt, and ignorance. Are we ready to face the next demon?
Next up is a really complex one, Daurhrida, who represents those subtle but really insidious evil attitudes.
Evil attitudes. That sounds pretty intense. Is this about, like, becoming a bad person?
Well, it's not necessarily about being inherently evil. The text uses a specific example to illustrate Daurhrida's influence, which is pride in one's family background.
Okay, so this isn't just about actions, but it's about our attitudes and beliefs.
Exactly. The text points out how even someone with a spiritual knowledge and accomplishments can be held back by this kind of pride.
Okay.
It can create this sense of superiority that prevents genuine connection.
That's interesting. So it's like saying that even good people can be blinded by certain attitudes or beliefs.
Exactly.
And this pride, even if it's about something seemingly positive, like family heritage, can actually create barriers.
Right. Any forms of superiority, whether it's based on family or wealth or social status or even spiritual accomplishments,
Right.
can actually become a barrier to connection and growth.
Yeah.
It creates separation.
So it's not just about avoiding like outright bad behavior, but it's about examining those subtle attitudes and beliefs that might be preventing us from connecting with others on a deeper level.
Exactly. It's about cultivating humility and recognizing our shared humanity, regardless of our backgrounds or achievements.
Daurhrida's a sneaky one. It makes me think about like those subtle biases that we might not even realize we have.
Yeah.
The ones that kind of shape our perceptions without us even knowing it.
And that's why self-awareness is so crucial.
Yeah.
We need to be willing to really examine our own hearts and minds,
Right.
uncover those hidden biases, and challenge those attitudes that create separation.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion,
Yeah.
revealing those subtle but potent beliefs that might be influencing how we see the world and how we treat each other.
Exactly. And that process of self-discovery can be both challenging and liberating.
Yeah.
It requires honesty and courage,
Right.
but it also opens us up to the possibility of deeper connection and understanding.
Yeah, love that. So we encountered 6 of these Asuras so far.
We have.
Pretty intense lineup. What's next?
Well, we've got 2 more to go. Get ready to meet Mauryah and Kalakeya. They bring some really fascinating twists to our exploration of these inner challenges.
Okay, so we've been getting to know these Asuras, like these inner demons, these universal challenges that can really like throw us off balance.
Right.
But the text doesn't just leave us hanging, right? There's got to be a way to fight back. And it talks about something called disciplined spiritual practice.
Right. And that's where it gets really interesting because spiritual practice might sound kind of intimidating to people.
Right.
Even a little mysterious. But when you really break it down, it's about connecting to something larger than ourselves.
Yeah.
And that connection can give us strength,
Okay, but what does that actually look like in real life? What are some like tangible things that people can do?
Yeah.
It can't all be about, chanting on a mountaintop, right?
No, not at all. There are so many different ways to engage in spiritual practice. And it's really about finding what resonates with each individual.
Okay.
The text emphasizes the importance of sadhana, which often gets translated as spiritual practice.
Okay.
But it's a much broader concept.
So what does Vadana actually mean? Is it like a specific set of rituals or practices?
Think of it more as a commitment to self-awareness and personal growth.
Okay.
It's about intentionally cultivating practices and perspectives that nourish our minds, bodies, and spirits.
Okay, so it's not just about, sitting on a meditation cushion for hours on end. It could be anything that helps us connect with something larger than ourselves.
Exactly, and that something larger can be different for everybody.
Right.
It could be a connection to nature, a higher power, a sense of purpose. It could even be a community of like-minded individuals.
Right.
Or even just a feeling of belonging to something bigger than just our individual selves.
I love that. It makes spiritual practice feel much more like accessible.
Right.
And relatable, but how does connecting to something larger actually help us fight those inner demons? Does it just like magically make them disappear?
Well, not necessarily disappear, but it definitely weakens their grip,
Okay.
When we connect to something larger, we're tapping into a source of strength and wisdom that we might not even realize we have. And it kind of gives us a different perspective on those inner struggles.
So instead of feeling like we're battling those demons alone, we're calling in reinforcements.
Exactly. It's like we're drawing on this wellspring of resilience and support. And it reminds us that we're not defined by those negative tendencies.
Right.
We're a part of something much bigger, much more expansive.
Okay, so we're not just fighting those demons on our own. We're calling in those reinforcements, so to speak.
Right.
But how do we make sure those reinforcements, like, stick around?
Well, that's where the discipline comes in.
Okay.
The text really emphasizes the importance of consistent effort.
Right.
It's not about having one moment of enlightenment and then going back to our old ways.
Right.
It's about cultivating these practices and perspectives that support our growth over time.
So it's like building a muscle, right? The more we practice, the stronger we become.
Exactly. And like any workout, there will be days when it feels challenging.
Yeah.
When those Asuras seem to be putting up a good fight.
Right.
But the key is to keep showing up, keep practicing, keep connecting.
I love that analogy. It makes this whole idea of like spiritual practice feel so much more attainable.
Right.
But let's get specific. So if someone's listening and they're like, okay, I'm ready to conquer my innate demons, where do they even begin?
Well, it starts with identifying, which Asura resonates most strongly. Which one of these negative tendencies is causing you the most trouble right now?
So self-reflection is key. And then once we've identified our nemesis, what's next?
Think about the specific practices that might help you counteract that particular Asura. So, for example, if you're really struggling with Udayudh, the demon of aggression,
Right.
maybe you explore mindfulness techniques or anger management strategies.
Okay, so like tailor the practice to the demon.
Exactly.
What about Kambu, that demon of shame? How do we fight that one?
Well, self-compassion is key here,
Right.
Practice treating yourself with kindness and understanding. Challenge those negative self-talk patterns and replace them with affirmations of worthiness.
Okay.
Journaling or talking to a trusted friend can also help process those feelings of shame.
And what about Koti Virya, that overwhelming fear?
This is where courage and resilience come in. Start by facing your fears in small, manageable steps. Celebrate each victory, no matter how small, and gradually build your confidence. Visualizing yourself overcoming the fear can also be helpful.
Okay. What about Dhaumra, that pesky demon of doubt?
Cultivate self-trust. Learn to discern between those helpful and unhelpful doubts. Seek knowledge, gather information, and make decisions based on a balance of intuition and evidence.
Okay.
Maybe create a list of pros and cons or seek advice from someone you trust.
So it's about quieting that inner critic.
Right.
And finding that voice of inner wisdom.
Exactly. And that brings us to Kalaka, the demon of ignorance.
Right.
To combat this one, embrace curiosity and open-mindedness.
Yeah.
Seek understanding, challenge your assumptions, and be willing to step outside your comfort zone. Try reading books or articles on different perspectives. Engage in respectful conversations with people who hold different views. Even try exploring new cultures and experiences.
So it's all about expanding our worldview, right? Breaking down those barriers that keep us stuck in our own little bubbles.
Exactly. Now for Daurhrida, the Asura of evil attitudes, it's crucial to cultivate humility and compassion. Recognize that we're all interconnected, and that no one is inherently superior or inferior.
Right.
Practices like volunteering or practicing random acts of kindness can help shift our perspective and foster a sense of interconnectedness.
So it's about letting go of those like ego-driven judgments.
Right.
And recognizing our shared humanity.
Exactly. And that leads us to Mauryah, the Asura representing individuality.
Okay.
Here, the key is to find that balance between celebrating our uniqueness and recognizing our interconnectedness.
Okay.
Participating in group activities or joining a community that aligns with your values can help you explore that balance.
It's like that African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Beautifully, beautifully put. And finally, for Kalakeya,
Okay.
the demon of pride in social groups, we need to challenge tribalism and embrace diversity. Step outside those echo chambers, engage with people from different backgrounds, and expand your understanding of the world.
Okay.
Try attending events or workshops focused on diversity and inclusion, travel to new places, or simply strike up conversations with people you wouldn't normally interact with.
So it's about moving beyond those limiting group identities and recognizing just the richness of human experience.
Precisely. And here's the thing, these practices aren't just about conquering our inner demons. They're about cultivating a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
It's like we're not just fighting against something, we're striving towards something.
Exactly.
We're like evolving and growing and becoming more fully ourselves.
Exactly. And that journey of self-discovery is ongoing.
Yeah.
There will be setbacks, there will be challenges, but the key is to just keep moving forward, keep learning, and keep connecting to that source of strength and wisdom within ourselves and beyond.
It's just amazing how this ancient wisdom, these Asuras, these inner demons, it's so relevant even today to like modern life.
It really is. And it's not just about overcoming negative tendencies either. It's like
Mm.
it's about tapping into a deeper understanding of ourselves, of the human experience, as a whole.
It's like those ancient sages were onto something pretty profound, like even without all the science and technology that we have today.
I know. They're just observing human nature, and they notice these patterns of behavior, these internal struggles, and they just
Right.
seem to transcend time and culture.
Yeah, it makes you realize that even though the world has changed so much, we're still grappling with those same fundamental challenges, like
Right.
the fear, the anger, the doubt,
Absolutely.
the desire for connection, the search for meaning. It's like
It's all still there.
yeah,
And the text, it provides this framework for understanding those challenges, for seeing them not as just, personal flaws, but as these universal archetypes,
right.
these recurring patterns that we all encounter on this path of personal growth.
So we're all on this hero's journey, right?
Totally.
Facing those inner demons and then learning to conquer them.
I love that analogy. The Asuras are the obstacles in our path, right?
Right.
They're these tests of our courage, our resilience.
So they're kind of showing us where we need to do the work, like where we need to cultivate those qualities that'll help us become like the best version of ourselves.
Exactly. Instead of seeing those negative tendencies as something to be ashamed of, we can view them as signposts, pointing us towards areas where we can evolve, where we can expand.
So if we could sum up the key takeaways from this deep dive, what would they be?
Okay, well, first, remember, these Asuras, they're not just your personal problems, okay?
Right.
They're reflections of those universal struggles that we all face.
Right. We're not alone.
We're not alone in this. And second, we have the power to conquer these demons, to actually transform those challenges into opportunities for growth,
Exactly. It's about cultivating that self-awareness,
right?
connecting to something larger than ourselves,
Absolutely.
engaging in those practices that nourish our minds, bodies, and spirits.
It's a journey. It's not a destination, right?
Right.
There will be setbacks. There will be times when it feels like those Asuras are winning. But the key is to keep practicing, keep learning, keep growing.
And to remember that we have resources.
Oh, totally.
The wisdom of those who came before us, the support of our community, and the strength that lies within each of us. Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something you said earlier. You suggested we can actually view these Asuras as opportunities for growth. Can you, expand on that a bit?
Of course, instead of seeing them as enemies to be defeated, what if we saw them as teachers,
Okay.
What if Udayudh, that demon of anger, is actually showing us where we need to cultivate patience and understanding?
Right. And what if Kambu, the demon of shame, is actually urging us to embrace that self-compassion, that self-acceptance?
Exactly. And maybe Koti Virya, the demon of fear, is inviting us to step outside of our comfort zone and discover our true courage.
Yeah, it's a powerful shift in perspective to view those negative tendencies not as something to be ashamed of, but as these opportunities for growth.
It's like they're holding up a mirror,
Right.
reflecting back to us those aspects of ourselves that need attention and care.
So, dear listener, as we conclude this deep dive, we invite you to consider which Asura resonates most strongly with you right now. What challenge is this demon presenting? And more importantly, what opportunity for growth does it offer?
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those inner demons in check. Because within each challenge lies the potential for, incredible transformation.
That's a wrap on this deep dive into conquering our inner demons. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and practical tools to navigate those universal human struggles. Until next time, keep those minds